Sup Shredders, my name is Logan, aka Spiderhands, and welcome to SP Reviews, where today we have ourselves a track from an act named Ovtlier titled Living Dead. And if we switch over to here, we have the track on Spotify, and we're going to listen through this track from start to finish, and you're going to hear what we think. Let's go. Let's do this. What do we got? Oh, fantastic work starting with the strings, with the synth strings on there, and the piano, and the organs, zombies. Sorry, the guitar tone there is absolutely sensational, and how the vocals come in like that after letting the drums kind of slap it like that it's sick, man. We woke up inside a play, counting down to Judgment Day. One by one. It's kind of cool because a while ago I said, man, I wish I could review more like rock and metal bands, and I think whoever out there was listening that makes these decisions, it's great to listen to this kind of music. I'm not going to pretend that I'm not completely unbiased, but I suppose it would make me more picky about it because I do love this kind of music. I like these industrial kind of synths and everything like that coming along in here, sort of notch alongside the down-tuned guitars, whether they're like 7 strings or something like that, and the beat drums and everything. There's a nice contrast between the two halves of the verse stanza. Great sense of tension with those leads as well. Oh, that bridge was so short. Wow, man. This is actually a slapper, man. Oh, should I say the slaps? Like, damn, dude, that hook was so to the point. This sounds very professional. It's one of the most polished tracks I've heard within the genre in quite a long time. It's just to the point. It cuts to the chase. 3 minutes 07. It's so short, but there's no filler. And have the little bit of growling at the end there to come into a cleaner section, just so that if you're into that kind of stuff, you get you wet your tongue a little bit, but then we're back into the verse and what we're familiar with. Great sense of change there and keeping the listener engaged. I like the fact that we had the growl, but then we had the low vocals as well. So if you couldn't understand the growly vocals, you had the lows to kind of help you out. Smart move. And I like that little bit of, you've dug your grave bit in that bridge section is a little bit of a hint for what they're going to do as a Living Dead, both literally and metaphorically. Or figuratively, should I say. Hey, halftime. Sick breakdown, dude. It's just such a fantastic device, the breakdown. You've got a set groove for most of the track, and then it just brings it to a stop. And again, there was very little warning that it was going to occur. It's not like they had a massive sort of section where there was nothing, and then like a big build up to it or something like that. They just transfer into it as if, hey, you should know by now that we don't screw around. This is our turf. Great palm muting there, nice tense, very tight. Till there's nothing left. Because we can still do the clean vocals as well, which is what I really enjoy about this melody here. I know it's a thing in like metal, especially nowadays, to definitely have that clean hook, even if you have the growly vocals and like the verse and stuff like that. But the problem is that it's effective because it just works. Like I remember like reading through a study they did, and like it was a long time ago, but people on average like they really preferred like male vocalists to have higher voices, for example. So if you can kind of like combine that with with the growls and the verse and stuff like that, have a bit of lows occasionally, but have that those vocals soar on top of the down-tuned guitars and the bass and the drums, you got yourself a banger, man. And I think that's part, even if he's sort of mid-range, it's still enough to sort of give him presence. Damn. What an absolute banger. Because this is the conclusion of this review of Living Dead by Outlier. Clearly an act who have got some notches on their belt. It's a great track. Honestly, it's a really strong single. What do I think the song is about? I think it's not just about like zombies. Like that's a little bit too sort of like blunt, but I think more or less it's about the concept of people sort of over-consuming and taking everything and just turning into zombies because we just take what exists as grounded that it's ours. I think that's it. We sort of step to the point where we poison ourselves and become the virus itself. I don't know if that's literally what it is. That's my interpretation of it. I'm happy to be told that otherwise, but it's a great story nonetheless, and I enjoyed listening to it. The vocals, you had like the little vulnerable sort of clean vocals, soft vocals in the bridge with the growls and the sort of more sort of vocal fry-ish verse parts, and then you had like the cleaner vocals alongside the growlies and like the hook. You had a wide variety of different ways of expressing ourselves through the microphone. The singer really knows what they're doing there. I don't think they needed to change a thing. I could tell there was competent vocal technique there. Again, like there's a bit of auto-tune and stuff like that in rock and metal nowadays, and that's not a bad thing. I don't mind it as like a stylistic thing. I could tell that we actually knew how to sing, and there wasn't a whole lot of ornamentation or anything like that. A whole lot of really sort of crazy wild vocal flurries or anything like that, even though, to be fair, it's not easy to get that level of sort of proficiency with the rougher vocals without having good technique, lest you completely screw your vocal cords. But I think they managed to find the right sort of balance there, and I'm really happy that I got the opportunity to listen to them. I would legitimately listen to these guys outside of reviews, which is something I do not say often. In fact, what I will do is I will like the track and I will follow them so I can hear more of what they do. And again, that is not something I do often. So feel free to not take that as a compliment. Again, it's not bias. If I hear a band I like, I'm going to support them, But to be objective for the rest of the conclusion, obviously, I think that the vocal performance was great, very confident, comfortable in the head and chest voice. The way they sung made sense with the vocals, and it's great to show different angles emotionally and with the approach overall. Lots of range there. What else do I want to say? I think that the motif behind it, there were several different progressions and lines and everything, and it's not like we had like a guitar solo or anything like that. It's one of those situations where I think they're having like a solo on the instrument would have been a little bit too much. And it's a very, very rare thing for me to say, because often I find that the vocals are too much of a focus, and it's sort of to the detriment of everything else, especially in rock and metal, Like if they don't have often it's because the vocalist really likes to sound their own voice. I mean that as a fan of the genre of music, It is sad when you don't allow the other instrumentalists to really show their stuff or strut their stuff. And I think in this band, we had a chance for like the drummer and the guitarists and the bassists and everything like that to get in there and have a great time. There was lots of range in regards to the approach there, but effectively it sounded like, especially with the pianos and synth strings and the church organ that we had in the start of beginning, how they were cautiously layered in there to add a sense of drama to it, coming in again with those guitar, bass and drums. It's a nice contrast of different timbres and textures, and it was well considered and well implemented. But yeah, the theme, to get back to the motif itself, I suppose, before I went off on a tangent, the motif to me insinuates that we have a situation where it is a breakout, it is a virus, it is an invasion of some kind. There's a sense of tension and drama to it, wondering if we're ever going to make it out or if it's just too late. That's what I got from the riff behind it. These heavy downtuned power chords with the little sort of dissonant flat second intervals there, and with the bass line that stuck with those root notes and did a little bit of flying around, but not too much, and the drums that were just constant, stuck with it, regardless of whether it was those sort of industrial sections or like the heavy kind of breakdowny bits, And we played to the tune and to the betterment to the overall experience, and I think I think it's admirable. I think that the production, the recording, mixing, mastering, I feel like I'm rushing through this conclusion, but I also don't have a lot to say that maybe hasn't already been said throughout the review. When you want to go a track like this with such variation between the elements, little bits of vocal filtering and stuff like that, great panning of the vocals as well. The notching, EQing, the filtering and the reverb and delay chains of all the different instruments were great. I don't think we oversaturated the instruments either. The vocals, I'm not quite sure how they achieved the sound they got. Like, I could take guesses at it, but I at least like the filtering, the EQing, the compression, etc. And the way that we sort of, especially, you know, it's just like with the vocal foley, like the little sample about the outbreak at the start, you know, it's like, you didn't need to include that, but it's that like extra sort of icing on the cake, right? And I like it when people include little bits of sort of cinematic, sort of theatrical stuff to kind of elevate the mood. I think that if you'd had one weak element from a production perspective, like if the guitars had been off tonally, or if they hadn't been glued into the mix with the rest of the elements, or if the bass and drums were off by like a micrometer, it would have been detrimental simply because it was really clean. But we managed to avoid any serious issues there. Leveling overall was great. It was nice and wide in the headphones. And limiting compression of the track overall was fantastic. You had dynamic range and changes in the perceived loudness. That wouldn't be to the detriment of someone who wanted a more consistent listening experience. I mean, I suppose that's my review of Outlier's Living Dead. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go check out their various social medias and you know, their Spotify page, and stay cool and stay safe. Please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as either help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world, and I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.